Hello, everybody. You are watching or listening to the Nomiki Show. I'm Nomiki Konst, here live from my grandparents' house in Tucson, Arizona, under self-quarantine, as so many of you are as well. But today is a special day because it is the Arizona primary day. While several states, up until the last moments, decided that they were going to cancel their primaries or postpone them indefinitely, Arizona thought, that's okay, just do business as usual. So I've noticed a little bit of a time warp in Arizona, having traveled from New York to Arizona, and honestly traveling extensively over the past few weeks. Hence my self quarantine, and I've noticed that Arizona has not sped up to the process of self quarantining, and I see a lot of elderly out at the grocery store while I'm covered in masks and gloves and everything. So it's a little bit concerning to see the response, especially from Democratic leadership, including DNC Chair Tom Perez, in keeping the primary on track, even if 80% have mailed in their votes. So before we get to my interview, which is really interesting, I just want to remind folks that if you're not already subscribing on YouTube, please click the subscribe button and share these videos, because our goal is to hit 100,000 subscriptions in the next 6 weeks. And I think we can do it because we've been on pace so far. And if you're not a patron, we're trying to build a studio here in my grandparents' house because we don't know how long we're going to be here for. So please join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. We post interviews early. We're building a Slack channel right now. We have merchandise and building out different programs there. I'm really excited about our next guest because I've known him since I was a kid. He is a dear friend of mine for many years. His name's Ted Theodorou. He's a teacher at the Paradise Valley Unified School District, correct? 6th grade gifted program. He's a Bernie supporter, because this all started because you texted me a picture of your ballot voting for Bernie. And then I wanted to know what your experience was like voting today. So Ted, thank you for joining us. I know you've got kids around and a lot happening, and you're on spring break as well. So I just really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. It's so good to be here. I know you're on a time crunch too, but I just wanted to thank you for all the work you're doing. Your Yaya and Papu would be so proud. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. They're here in spirit. They taught us a lot about preparing for Depression era. Quite a bit, I'm sure. Our grandparents have all taught us those lessons. So Ted, you are a teacher. You're on spring break right now. Let's first talk about just how you've had to change your life, how the school system and the teachers unions are, or what's left of the teachers unions in Arizona, are dealing with this catastrophe and this pandemic.
Yeah, so I've been getting a lot of emails and phone calls from the AEA, the Arizona Teachers Educators Association, and they've been really trying to reassure us that they're taking all the safety precautions first and foremost to make sure that kids and families are safe, that the buildings are sanitized properly. I was surprised to know that, unfortunately, in the school district where I'm at, that not everything was properly vacuumed every day. I think that it was only every a couple days a week that everything was really deep cleaned. So I think that they're making some changes there. But as you mentioned, this is our spring break week now, so that was actually really good timing. They've closed the following week, one additional week after spring break, and then I think they're going to reassess to see if we need to have any additional closures after that. As far as kind of me as a worker, as an AEA member, they've reassured us that this wouldn't affect our wages, that we would still continue to get paid, so that's good. But the big question is, what kind of work will we be doing? Are we going to be working remotely, providing online classes for students, distance learning, or are we actually going to go into the building but not have kids? There was some talk about maybe going into the building and doing like some professional development and training, but not actually being with students. So.
It's interesting because you're seeing distance learning for colleges where hopefully kids are fully developed and young adults are fully developed. But I can't even imagine teaching younger kids via distance learning. I mean, it's already hard to teach them in a classroom and get them focused. But I don't even know how that would happen. I mean, it seems pretty, although they are very comfortable with technology. So what do I know?
No, absolutely. Like I think you're right. For the older kids, it's doable, and I think there's a lot of great resources out there that we try to incorporate into our classrooms anyway. When this kind of thing isn't going on, the whole backwards design model or flipped classroom model, excuse me, where kids are actually doing learning at home and then come to class ready to do debates and in-class discussions. Like that's a model that's being used anyway. But you're right. How do you do distance learning with a kindergartner or a first grader? How do you teach art? How do you teach PE when you're not face to face? It's kind of hard to have some of those other subjects areas being taught like this. And really, I think of a survey that I saw once about professions that will be replaced by AI and robots in the future, and one of those professions that really could never be replaced was teaching, because it's just so important to have that face-to-face interaction.
And there's also been recent research about the effectiveness of distance learning and online classrooms, that it's not as effective as in person, but we have to do it with what we can right now, I guess, as we work through these circumstances. And I'm glad that we do have these tools. So you voted today.
Got my stick.
Oh, there you go. Last night, I kind of got an exchange with a friend of mine. He's a congressman, Ruben Gallego in Arizona. I've known him for many years. I think like I was maybe 19 or 20 when I met him, and we were working on Young Democrats. He was young at that time. His ex-wife is now the mayor of Phoenix. Excuse me, that's the curtain. So people have really grown up. I mean, it's kind of amazing to see how everybody has grown. But there is a Democratic presidential primary in Arizona today that was not canceled or postponed. And part of the reasoning is, as Congressman Gallego said, is because they have a very strong vote by mail program here. Now, he said that 80% of folks have actually voted by mail already. But even that 20% chance, and there's quite a few elderly in Arizona. It's a big retirement state, and folks are used to going to their polling sites. And last night I got a text from, I don't know how they do this, but they texted me, I'm a New York voter, that polling sites have changed for many folks because of COVID. So not only are people having to vote today, if they decide to go with a more traditional form of voting, but their polling sites may have changed. So there's confusion on top of it. What was your experience like? Like, did you know which polling site you were going to today? Why did you decide not to vote by mail?
Yeah. So I got a mailing that
the polls.
What's that?
No shaming for not voting by mail. I love going to the polls. I love the experience. So
yeah, that was my thinking too. So I got a text message alert and an email, I think a day or two ago, that said that countywide, with Maricopa County, we could use any polling place. So they weren't restricting it to your local precinct. So I don't know if that was, I'm assuming that was an effort to kind of reduce crowds or lines, or to, maybe reduce congestion. But we were able to vote in any location. I was originally scheduled to go to a local church in the area, but we ended up driving down to Paradise Valley Community College. So I went in. My wife stayed in the car with the boys, and then we switched. She went in, and I stayed with my two sons. But really, it was a pretty light crowd. I mean, there was just a handful of people there. There was more poll workers than there were actually people voting. I did get a little nervous because the lady who was kind of helping me with my touchscreen system there looked like she could have been in one of the at-risk populations. So I tried to just kind of stay as far away as I could, and but she was there touching the screen. I mean, in order to print your ballot, you have to touch the screens and scan your driver's license and do all that stuff. So I was hoping that they sanitize and wipe down those screens in between uses. But other than that, I mean, I did feel a little nervous about it, but I think it went smoothly. It was in and out in probably no more than like 5 minutes tops. I did take a picture of my ballot, though, just enough time to take a picture, voting for Bernie Sanders.
Yay! Just had to drop that one out there. See, there are progressives out there in red states. Listen, I think last night when Tom Perez went on TV on Chris Hayes' show on MSNBC and said, business as usual, essentially, that he trusts the folks in these states to conduct, their elections in a safe way. I mean, this really isn't a political decision. This is a public health decision. And that's what essentially happened in Ohio. Was the public health commissioner, I believe, had to intervene and say, we're shutting down the election, after a back and forth, between the governor and otherwise. So, the response that I got from the congressman and also just a Democratic Party official that I've known for years as well, because everybody's old, they said that, it would take state legislature to change the election date. And I understand that. I was in the Unity Reform Commission. I've been making that case when people tried to say that we were trying to move caucuses nationwide. I said, no, it comes down to the states. With that being said, the public health issue is what intervenes. That, when you have such a crisis like this, it puts too many people at risk, even if it's just a handful of folks, as you know too well. And I'm just happy that you're healthy and you're being very thoughtful about how you're dealing with this situation. And I want you to stay healthy. And I'm glad that your union is protecting you every way it can at this moment in Arizona. And you guys have fought so hard here in Arizona. So, any final words you want to share with the world?
The world. Wow. Well, no, it's definitely tough times right now, but I know we'll get through it. And to all my teacher friends out there, thank you for what you do. I mean, there's certainly a lot of jokes going around right now amongst my teacher friends, saying stuff like, "Oh, now the families see what us teachers have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I'm stuck home with all my kids. What do I do?" So it's it's sad that kind of it takes something like this for the public to realize what we play, the role we play. I mean, I hate when people say that teachers are just glorified babysitters, because we're not. I hate that kind of mentality, or that that thinking, that not to sound prideful or arrogant or whatever, but I love what I do. I wish I got compensated a little bit better for what I do. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that we work really, really hard day in, day out to provide to train the future professions of the world. And I just it's sad that something like this is what's causing all those jokes to surface. But in any case, happy for what I do. I know that Bernie would fight for us, and that's why I voted for him today.
As so many other teachers and nurses who are all on the front lines right now in different ways, are supporting Bernie Sanders. I mean, that's an important note. My mother, who's in the studio audience right now, she's laughing in the background, says hello, Ted. She's also a former Arizona teacher, and she's been clapping the whole time. You can't see her.
Treasurer of the AEA when I was teaching.
You can hear her. Treasurer of the AEA when she was teaching.
I'd like to get more involved and to get start on some committees over there.
Yeah. Hey, the other side of this is we all have this, extra time now. Well, except if you have kids and you have to take care of them. But we have a little bit of extra time to think about, how we organize moving forward. Because I really do think that teachers and nurses, educators are very well organized. They have been fighting. We've seen what they've done in red states as well as nurses. So to see how we take this movement forward, and really push on our leaders so that we are not in a situation like this ever again. And I think generation-wise, we have the advantage there. So Ted, thank you. I hope next time I see you in person, I'm in Tucson, you're in Phoenix. Let me know when you come down here to see you folks. And we could do maybe there'll still be some social distancing. You'll be on the other side of the room and I'll be on this side, but.
Definitely. So good to see you. Best of luck with everything, and stay well and stay healthy.
You too. Stay healthy, everybody. Thank you.
Yasu.
Yasu.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care.